Welcome back to Rupert Reads. Today we are going to continue with the abridged reading of A Christmas Carol, written by Charles Dickens and read by me, Chad Lee. Stave 2, the first of the three spirits. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that, looking out of bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavoring to piece the darkness with his ferret eyes, when the chimes of a neighboring church struck for quarter hours. So he listened for the hour. To his great astonishment, the heavy bell went on from 6 to 7, from 7 to 8, and regularly up to 12, then stopped. 12. It was past 2 when he went to bed. The clock was wrong. An icicle must have gotten into the works. 12. Oh, wait, it isn't possible that I have slept through a whole night and far into another night. It isn't possible that anything had happened to the sun, and this is 12 o'clock at noon? The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. Not the curtains at his feet, nor the curtains at his back, but to those his face was addressing. Scrooge, stared up in front of half-encumbered attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not like a child. It was an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having reduced from the view, and being diminished to a child's proportion. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest blood was on his skin. The arms were so very long and muscular. The hands were the same, as if its whole were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet, most delicately formed, were, like those upper members, bare. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round his waist was bound a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. It held a branch of green holly in its hand, and, in singular contradiction with the wintry emblem, had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was, that from the crown of its head was sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all things were visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using, in its dire moment, a great extinguisher for a cap, which is now held under its arm. Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me? I am. Who and what are you? I am the ghost of Christmas past. Long past? No, your past. I beg you will be covered. What? Would you so soon put out, with worldly hands, the lad I give? Is it not enough that you were one of those whose passions made this cap, and forced me through trains of years to wear low upon my brow? I have no intention of offending you. May I make bold to inquire what business hath brought you here? Your welfare. I am much obliged, but I think a night of unbroken rest would be more conducive to that end. Your reclamation, then. Take heed, observe the shadows of the past, and profit from the recollection of them. What would you have me do? Rise and walk with me. It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather and the hour were not adept for pedestrian purposes, that bed was warm, and the thermostat a long way below freezing, that he was clad but light in his slippers, dressing gown, and nightcap, and that he had a cold upon him at that time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but found that the spirit made towards the window, clasped his rose in supplication. I am mortal, liable to fall. Bear with a touch of my hand, there, and you shall be upheld in more than this. As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall, and stood upon an open country road, with fields on either hand. The city was entirely vanished, not a vestige of it to be seen. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was a clear, cold, wintry day with snow upon the ground. Oh, good heavens! I was a boy at the old school, and it's the Christmas I was left alone. You remember it? Yes, I know. I was reading all about Ali Baba, dear old honest Ali Baba, and Valentine and his wild brother, Orson, and the Sultan's groom turned upside down by the Genii. Served him right. I'm glad of it. What business had he to be married to the princess? There's the parrot green body and yellow tail, with a thing like a lettuce growing out the top of its head. Oh, there he is, poor Robinson Crusoe. Where have you been, Robinson Crusoe? There goes Friday, running for his life to the little creek. Hello! Oop, hello! Oh, poor boy. Strange to have forgotten this for so many years. I wish, but it's too late now. What's the matter? Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should have given him something. That's all.
Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked, fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling, and the naked laths were showing instead. But how all this was brought about, Scrooge knew more than you do. He only knew that it was quite correct, and everything had happened so, that there he was, all alone, when all the other boys had gone home from the holiday. Dear, dear brother, I have come to bring you home, dear brother. Would you bring me home, home, home? Home, little friend? Like, for sure, home for good and all. Home for ever and ever? Like, Father is so much kinder than he used to be, then home is like heaven. He totally is so gentle to me that one night when I was going to bed, I was not afraid to ask him once more if he might come home. And he said, for sure, you should come home. And he sent me in a coach to bring you. And you're like a man now and never to come back here. But first we're all to be together all Christmas long and have the merriest time in the world.
You're quite the woman, little friend. Always a delicate creature whom a breath might have withered, but she had a large heart. So she had. You're right. I will not gainsay it, Spirit. Lord forbid. She died a woman and had, as I think, children. One child. True, your nephew. Yes. Let us see another Christmas.
Although they had but moment left the school behind, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city, whose shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches battled for the way, and all the strife and turmoil of a real city. It was made plain enough, by the dressing of shops, that here too it was Christmas time again. But it was evening, and the streets were lighted.
Do you know it? Know it? I was apprentice here. Why, it's old Fezziwig plus his heart. It's Fezziwig alive again, and Mrs. Fezziwig too. Dick Wilkins, to be sure, with Fezziwig's 2 daughters. Bless me, yes, there he is. He was such much attached to me, was poor Dick. Poor Dick. And see me cutting the pigeon wing. Dear, dear, dear.
Clear away. There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away, or couldn't have cleared away, with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off, and as if it were dismissed from public life for evermore. The floor was swept and watered, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would have desired to see on one winter's night. In came a fiddler with a book of music, and went to the lofty desk, and made an orchestra of it, and turned like 50 stomach aches. In came Miss Fezziwig, one vast substantial smile. In came 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. There were more dances, and there were more forfeit, and more dances, and there were cake, and there were nuggets, and there were the great piece of cold roast, and that great piece of cold boiled, and there were mince pies, and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast boiled, when the fiddler struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Miss Fezziwig. Top couple too, with a good stiff piece of work cut out for them, 3 or 4 and 20 pairs of partners.
A small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. Small? Why, old Fezziwig was one of the best that ever lived. He never missed giving his employees a Christmas ball. Why is it not? He spent a few pounds of money, 3 or 4 pounds perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves your praise? It isn't that, Spirit. He hath the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our services light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so light and insignificant that it is impossible to add and count them. What then? The happiness it gives is quite as great if it costs a fortune. Oh dear! What's the matter? Nothing particular. Something, I think. No. I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now. That's all. My time grows short. Let us hurry on. Do you remember this?
This was not addressed to Scrooge, or to anyone whom he could see, but it produced an immediate effect, for again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in his prime of life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in his eyes which showed the passion that had taken root, and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a morning dress. In those eyes there were tears, which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past.
It is Belle, as sure as I am a living sinner.
It matters little to you very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in times to come, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve.
What idol hath displaced you?
A golden one.
This is the even-handed dealing of the world. There is nothing on which is so hard as poverty, and there is nothing in professors to condemn with such severity as the pursuit of wealth.
You fear the world too much, and your other hopes have merged into the hope of being beyond the chance of its sordid reproach. I have seen your noble aspirations fall off one by one, until the master passion gain engrosses you. Have I not?
What then? Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? Am I not changed towards you? Am I?
Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so, until, in good season, we could improve our worldly fortune by our patient industry. You are changed. When it was made, you were another man.
I was a boy.
Your own feelings tell you that you were not what you are now. I am. That which promised happiness when we were in one heart is fraught with misery now. That we are two. How often and how keenly have I thought of this, I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it, and can release you.
Have I ever thought release?
In words, no, never.
In what then?
In a changed nature, in an altered spirit, in another atmosphere of life, another hope as it to its great end, in everything that made my love of any worth of value in your sight. If this had never been between us, tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now? No.
You think not?
I would gladly think otherwise, if I could, heaven knows. When I have learned the truth of this, I know how strong and irresistible it must be. But if you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can even I believe that you would choose a dowerless girl? You, who, in your very confidence with her, weighed everything by gain, or choosing her, if for a moment you were false enough to your own guiding principles to do so? Do I not know that your repentance and regret would surely follow? I do, and I release you with a full heart, for the love of him you once were. You may, the memory of what is past makes me hope you will, have pain in this, a very, very brief time, and you will dismiss the recollection of it, gladly, as an unprofitable dream, from which it happened well that you awoke. May you be happy in the life you have chosen. Farewell.
Bell, hear me, please. Let me explain. No more. I don't wish to see it. Behold.
The relentless ghost pinioned him in both arms and forced him to observe what happened next.
Bell, I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon.
Who was it?
Guess.
How can I don't know. Mr. Scrooge?
Mr. Scrooge it was, your old sweetheart. I passed his office window, and it was not shut up, and he had the candle inside. I could scarcely help see him. His partner, old Jacob Marley, lies on the point of death, I hear. And there he sat, alone, quite alone in the world, I do believe.
Poor old man.
The spirit, remove me from this place. I told you, these were the shadows of things that have been, that they are what they are. Do not blame me. I am to blame for what they are, and now that I see what they might have been, I am more wretched than ever. Remove me, I cannot bear it. Leave me, take me back, haunt me no longer.
He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face in which, in some ways, were there fragments of all the faces it had shown him, wrestled with it. In the struggle, if you can call it a struggle, in which the ghost, with no visible resistance on its part, was undisturbed by any effect of the adversary, Scrooge observed that its light was burning high and bright, and dimly connected, that, with its influence over him, he seized the extinguisher cap, and, by a sudden action, pressed it down upon its head. The spirit dropped beneath it, so that the extinguisher covered its whole form. But, though Scrooge pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light, which streamed from underneath it in an unbroken flood upon the ground. He was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by irresistible drowsiness, and, further, of being in his own bedroom. He gave the cap a parting squeeze, in which his hand relaxed, and had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. Thank you for joining us this week for this second episode of A Christmas Carol. If you would like, please join us again next week. And thank you for joining us. And if you liked what you heard, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thank you.